Hello and welcome to Aging Matters. This is a program that is provided by and sponsored by the Berks County Area Agency on Aging. My name is Ann Barlet and I'm the Public Advocacy and Outreach Manager for the agency. Our show tonight kind of touches upon something that we talked about in May for Older Americans Month, and so we're extending this program to talk about that theme and how it's actually enacted here in Berks County with one special guest tonight. I'll introduce our guest this evening is John Vogel, and John is president of the Berks County Area Agency on Aging's Advisory Council, and we were just talking earlier, and many credits thereafter, so if we rolled those credits, why we would be done.
We would be done.
So John is extremely active in the community, which is why I've invited him to be here this evening. We are live, so if you care to call in to ask John a question, please feel free to do so. The Older Americans Month theme this year was called Age Out Loud, and reflecting the fact that a lot of older adults or seniors with a wide age gamut, basically they felt that they live their lives with passion, with confidence, and that they are at their age looking to really explore new things, learn new activities, educate themselves even more about other things, as well as advocating for themselves and for others. So as an example, John is certainly an individual who lives very passionately and certainly engages himself in the community. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about John and the way that he does that, and being very active and an example of older adults aging out loud, and the ways that you also can get involved and do things and hopefully find your passion and find your ways to work in our community. So John, thank you for taking the time, because I know that we're penciled in here between this and this activity, and you just told me earlier you canceled or not going to one thing so you could be here, so thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I very much, I like the idea of aging out loud. When I first heard this, I thought of myself as when I had my children and they were little, and I was quite out loud. We lived on 3 stories, so when they were upstairs and they were doing things, I made sure that they could hear me. So all that happened to me was I just got a little older so I could age out loud. But the interesting part about that is the fact that you do and you can and you want to become passionate about something, because there's a certain element involved in this aging out loud and being involved, and it is the excitement of it. Because in each of the little things, and I call them little, although other people say, wow, I couldn't do what you do, but I don't think of it that way. I just think of the idea of the excitement of every day, getting up out of bed, having a place to go, having something to do, looking forward to something, being with other people, hearing their stories, hearing what's going on in their lives. Sometimes taking the time to bore them to death with what's going on in my life, but having a lot of fun. And sometimes you think, oh, I hate when persons are loud and everything like this. But when we age out loud and we share our story about the little things that we do, oh yeah, I go over to the hospital and I pick up trays. Aging out loud. Holy mackerel, you really do that? Yes, I do that. I'm very involved in the Boy Scouts here, the Hawk Mountain Council, and have been, believe it or not, for more than 40 years. And it's exciting to this, but everybody knows me as the Medicare man because I'm on that side of the aging out loud. I do a lot of things for the seniors, including myself, because as you can see, I am a card-carrying senior, so I have those chances.
Well, and I think that what, even by this theme and what you've done, you've just said something, I think, old and new, and I don't mean in age, but I think that as we become older adults and typically retired, I'm thinking the age of retirement, that you have that opportunity to say, gosh, what really interests me? Where did I have that passion? And for some reason, the practicality of life became what I had to focus on. And so I couldn't do this during my work years and my family years. And so now I want to get back to that, maybe, something I did years and years ago. Or as I'm looking at news and talking to people, I'm finding new things to care about, new things to do or be part of. So I think we're talking about old passions. You said Boy Scouts for 40 years, and new things that come along because you realize that what you are going to learn or want to do is very important and current. And so you go, hey, that's an interest of mine I can do. And I think that even though it's many years you've done the health insurance counseling, at that point there was some point in time that was new.
That was
you
new.
know, so you had both the Boy Scouts that you did years ago, and then over time learned some other things, determining that, hey, this is real and it's hard to understand, and I got it. Can I help others? And that's what I think. That you wouldn't do it if also you didn't have the passion.
Absolutely.
And then to kind of do that as to really helping others.
My grandson today from Florida sent me a picture of him and a really good friend out in a boat fishing. And it made me think about this show tonight, because I was thinking when he was up years ago and he was smaller, I gave him a lot of my fishing reels and all the things, because I used to love to fish. I used to go out, and I just don't do it anymore. And I think, but I met a man, some years back, who was an excellent tie. He would tie his flies by hand, and eventually he couldn't do it anymore. But he could teach. He could explain to somebody how to do that. And I just think when I saw Jacob today in the boat there fishing, and he held up a fish, and said, "I did catch one. I caught one." But I think to myself, there's something that maybe you couldn't do or wanted to do, and learn how to do it, but you can now share this. There is a true, and this is my second part of doing the things that I do, there's a true satisfaction that happens on both sides of the aisle there. Someone who learns something from you, who takes it away and thanks you to the nth degree, and you're thinking, well, I really didn't do anything, I just shared a little bit this. But at the same time, there's a real satisfaction knowing that you were able to take a little part of you and give that away.
Absolutely.
And they absorbed that and said thank you to the nth degree. So you can be a very passionate person in the community in all kinds of ways.
Well, and I think even in the example with the fly tying, and the person can, if they can't do it because of medical conditions or whatever, and can teach it, why not be in that finding out, well, how can I do that? What groups? Maybe it's parks and recreation groups. Maybe it's working with the kids, even at the camp, and really learning as to how they can give that back. And I was hoping that we could then connect people, not with specific groups and programs, but to be creative in thinking about that skill that they've had that was old and can be shared. How do you go, I can do that? What groups can I find in our community? Where can I find that? And really help them. Personally, I had always been curious with genealogy, and even more so lately because of shows on TV and people's histories and past. And I just took a really mini course locally here, and the lady who was helping us was an older adult, and she's got the passion. So, she was able to engage us and help more classes, and then me being able to do it. So mine was the new thing, hers has been cultivated. So I know, John, you mentioned Boy Scouts, and I know that you are, people obviously, I'm sure, are sitting, I'm going, I know him.
I know him. I know that guy.
Because one other little thing that you do is, of course, health insurance counseling, and really helping folks that way. And I know that you're very involved in your church activities. So I think in looking at those, how did you start some of those in terms of, were they old or new passions? And how did you get involved, let's say, even in the newer passions?
I'll give you a perfect example of one. Someone came to me about a year ago and said, you're so good at reading. How would you like to read to? And I went, and they said, no, you can do it at home. You can record books, and it's for the blind, or someone who can't quite, has the skill to do that. And I said, really, I can sit at home, tape record the book myself. So anyone that's out there, and you think to yourself, who's a real reader, who loves to read, and I'm passionate about reading. I'm not a TV person. I love to read, and I read all different things. I'm not this angle or that. I read. There is a tremendous need to share, and this is so simple. Your voice.
How
Your
about
voice.
that? Yep.
So now we had persons who could tie ties and teach people how,
And
but
educate.
your voice can carry so much to a person who's not able to do that, whether it's because of a physical thing or just even lonely. To read a book to someone and let them hear that book, and especially because here it comes, you're reading a book with your passion. And it might not sound exactly as if they read it. You're reading it and saying, oh, that is the really cool part. And that's how I got started.
Well, and even with that, that's how many more people can enjoy that one book that was recorded. And let me ask you this, and I don't know, we don't need to give specifics, but I would assume that, could that be associated either with a library? So I would see folks, again, encouraged to look at their local libraries.
Absolutely.
You know, if they're nearby, walk to them.
Absolutely.
See, if nothing else, how you can access what they have to offer. There might be, I'll stick with the reading. Maybe you prefer, I like children, so maybe I'd like to go on the days where they have the little groups where they're reading a particular book. And maybe that would be your way of helping in your community with what you like to do, whether it was children or reading, helping that way. Or again, helping somebody else on the computer working on something that they're working. So we could access libraries even to either record books, help others with your
and you can pick the things that have an interest to you, so that you're not going in and saying, you can take it from an interest of yourself and share that with somebody. And that's basically how I really got started in all this. Somebody came to me and said years and years and years ago, would you like to do this? And I became the president of a school board. And it was like, oh my, me, president of a school board? Okay. But I found out the passion of teaching and sharing with children who really wanted to do something with their lives, even at a very early age. And I thought, well, that's a cool way to start it. I'll go ahead and do that. Some years back, someone came to me and said, would you like to do health insurance counseling? And I said, what's that?
Because that doesn't seem easy to me, you know?
I took a bunch of courses in it and everything else, and became certified and everything. And I have done that for a number of years. And it's amazing that the number of people who come and say, I am so confused, I can't even read this stuff. I have piles of stuff. And I go, okay, let's talk. And it ends up being more, and I think this is one of those things that you develop within yourself. You become a great listener, you know, and you can hear, okay, this is what they're having a little confusion about, or anything else. I think the beauty of where I am in the separation of the things that I do, I am very, very involved in our church and do all kinds of things for the church, and some of them people would kind of shudder away from. I'm part of the funeral team for our church, so people don't always like to run the funerals, but I'm part of that. I'm part of that team, and I think of it as a way to be able to say goodbye to a person who might have done great things in the community, and I just never heard of them. You know, because I don't know most of the people. So it's another little thing that you can do.
But here's my question, because I think what we're trying to encourage folks is with that, I'm going to go back to the health insurance counseling when you said, somebody said, you want to do that? And you said, what's that? Where was that you had, because most people would go, oh, I don't know anything about it, and they back off. So somewhere in there, somewhere in you, either you had a past interest, or maybe it even was a business-related kind of thing that didn't scare you away. So how did that, you know, because we want to look at motivating some folks to maybe also do some things, not necessarily that, but what's that piece inside you?
Well,
what didn't scare you away from
the interesting part is I spent a long time auditing companies. So I came from a background of business, and I wasn't afraid of this. I never worked in HR, but I know wasn't afraid of the concept of what was going on. But the other side of that is my parents are long gone, but my parents, my mother was 44 and my dad was 42 when I was born. So I had parents who were going to move into a system a lot quicker than someone whose parents were only 20 years older than them. Mine were 40. So they moved into a system that everybody had to pay a little bit of attention to because of caring for my parents and everything. But it was great because my dad took an interest in it and he kind of pushed it over to me and said, this is what you need to do to help with it. So it was almost a natural flow from my business background and what he gave me. But there's so many organizations out there that do the same thing. They can take something that you did in your life. They can take something that you were really interested in. I had a gentleman who was deep into business. I mean, he was CEO and everything, but his passion was cars. He loved cars. And it wasn't that he had a collection of cars. He liked to fix cars. So he finally got to the point where he really wanted to do something, and he took some courses out at the Votech and ended up helping students learn little bits. But it was the fact that he was interested in a certain period of cars, and he knew a little bit about those. So it even though it was we talk about fixing cars, it's gigantic, but his part of it was he liked fixing up little sports cars, and he knew how to do that, and he was willing to share that with him. So he took his own passion inside of himself, volunteered, totally volunteered, and said to kids, well, you want to learn how to fix a 1960 or 1959 or 1957, I can show you how to do this and everything. It's not all online. You can't, it's really the idea of saying, Ann, guess what? I know this, I'll show you how to do it.
Well, and that seems to be, again, there's some reach out and some creative thinking on those parts. How do you connect? That's what I think we'd like to be able to talk about, connecting those interests, whether old or new, in terms of what do I do with that? And so there's organizations, I'm sure out there that certainly we have regular volunteer opportunities, but I'm talking a little bit more than that,
I just was reading out there before you came in, I was reading about the DID and the fire and ice program that they started downtown, and how many wonderful opportunities to be a volunteer in something that's regrowing our city. This is a real positive, good thing that is going on in our city downtown, and I just happen to know Chuck Broad really well, and I know he runs that program, and he actually started it, but he's always looking for somebody that would have a really big interest in it. I see the young ladies who come and do the farm
the farmers market.
Farmers market, and I think to myself, why would they do that? Well, it's because they have their own little garden in their yard.
They love growing and sharing.
And
how to make those food items into something that you like.
They can figure out something to do with a zucchini that I can't even figure out, and yet they'll share that. And what are they doing? They're volunteering to stand behind a stand that they know what's in front of them. There's a zucchini, there's a green pepper, a purple pepper, who knows what those things are. They do. And it really came from a simple passion, and it wasn't that they started the farmers market, they just are becoming part of this farmers market. And when you go in and you go, you know what, I've been growing vegetables and my grandfather did, my father did, I'm doing it, I love it, can I help? And that's the little spark that it happens. It's not everything that I do, because if I did all that, I'd never sit down. But it's because it's not really part of my passion to do that. But there are so many opportunities to go and be part of something that you can do, from the simplest thing to the most complex. I mean, you mentioned the computer. Most of the people that come in to see me, even if they say they have a computer at home, are saying, boy, I really wish I could figure out how to do this on my computer. And I know even with Berks Encore and the Area Agency on Aging, we do have some classes for seniors, but it isn't that, it's the matter of they're trying to do something. And once they obtain that skill, I have seen people who taught everybody how to email their grandchildren, how to send a picture to their grandchildren. It's not rocket science once you know how to do it, But it's a whole lot easier for me with my color hair to show somebody else with my color
Exactly.
hair than it is to be sitting there to be totally confused
Yep.
about what's going on. I mean, we live in a world now that is absolutely positively, you can say, and I just read in here how to say no, but how to say yes. Because if you're willing, if you just take that little risk of saying I'm willing. And my third point on here was the fact of the number of rewards. The excitement that you bring is your own excitement. Do it within your own thing that you love to do. There's a tremendous satisfaction of doing those kinds of things, but the rewards, oh my word,
Yep.
if I could stack up trophies, I've had tens of thousands of trophies for the number of thank yous and how rewarded you feel. And even if nobody does say thank you, even if you did something, read a book to yourself in your house, sitting at the dining room, and you gave the tape recorder back, well, it's not a tape recorder, but gave the tape recorder back, and somebody else enjoyed that because, first off, they liked hearing your voice. Your voice is very soothing. Your voice is really comforting.
Well, because by hearing that book, maybe it's taking them to another world in their mind, and it's taking them away from their pain, or the loneliness, or whatever reason. And I think that, as you said, benefits, I think that, people think, oh, it's time commitment. But again, I think what we're doing is saying, look at the world, look at our community, read about what is happening, and see if that are, when you said fire and ice, I was thinking ice sculptors. So if you have some kind of creativity, maybe you can offer that up, whether it's to an event, to kids, as you said, other seniors, other older adults. So if they're really good at a computer, it would be a lot easier for an older adult to say, oh, don't worry, I hit that key all the time.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't blow up, versus the kid saying, you can do that key, but, Yeah, so I think that too, I think the idea is, because as we do know, and you said that the rewards and the benefits really come back to you tenfold when you know that individual has really been helped by one small thing that you were able to give. That's really beneficial to them and certainly to you. And I know that time commitments, and so we're not saying do everything. Again, you may have a whole long list, but I think it's good to start with some of the things that I have a friend who is recently retired a year or two, and through another, again, mutual friend, sending a general thing out saying, we could really use help with this. And one small piece of it was maybe some grant writing. And this person, through experience, had done that and said, well, I'll help you with that. So it could be a stop and start thing, too, where she's able to help them with some grants just for that one-time thing.
Yeah. I'll give you a perfect example. I had a really good friend of mine, who, way on the side, way over here, loved carpentry. But he didn't have the time commitment and didn't want to do it. So he would help at different high schools to build the scenery. It was a very short period of time.
Shows. Okay.
It was if the spring show. Take the time to help build some of the background scenery that they needed for that particular show, and his skill on that was fantastic. And the reward was to sit in the audience and hear the people clap for the kids. He had nothing. Clap
and
for the
see
kids
that
and
whole
do it.
coming together.
There it is. And it was if you were going to go to left field to find that was what he did, it was as far away from what he actually did in life. But he had that little spark, that passion, that excitement, and his satisfaction in that was the fact that he could see these people who built these wonderful little things and then created a show and did the show. So he was working in his own skills. And he was also giving away his skills to somebody else. And I think that's there's so many organizations who just want to be able to say, oh, and you can do what? And it doesn't matter, so complex, so simple. You can do that. Could you help us with that? It's wonderful.
Well, and I think the people, it's both ways. If I've got that special skill, or that wanting to learn or to engage in the community, because I want to be, as you said, sit with the city, maybe the revitalization of the city, and I'm passionate that should come back. Whatever it is, I think the first step is to investigate and really look out there and see, how can I put that to good use? Who can I call? We need to do a little bit of investigating, make some phone calls, make some contacts to see how all of these can weave together. And so many folks can give that passion, be active in the community, be engaged in the community, whether it's, as you said, with the carpentry for show scenery, a very small piece of time, maybe over many years, or, over years, much time, as you have to the church and the Boy Scouts and to health insurance counseling. So in one last minute, as we wrap up the show and encourage folks to really honor that Older Americans Month theme of aging out loud and exploring things and advocating, one last thought on that,
My
John.
last thought is, remember this, we can age out loud, and we can, with all the excitement within ourselves, we can absolutely be as passionate as we want to do and know it's exciting. There is a tremendous amount of satisfaction of going out and giving away something. And I'll tell you what, you're absolutely right. In fact, 10 times probably isn't enough, 100 times the rewards that you get back.
Yep. Good. Well, I hope that we've encouraged some of you to really think about what you're interested in and actually be motivated to seek out resources and begin to be engaged or continue your engagement in our community. And thanks for watching Aging Matters.